Canadians know that the only thing fake is this Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, today the NDP flip-flopped on its flip-flop. First, they voted 16 times in favor of the carbon tax on home heat. Then they voted to quadruple the tax. Then yesterday, they panicked and flip-flopped and voted for my plan to take the tax off home heating, admitting that they were wrong all along. And now today, they said they're in favor of the tax on home heat by refusing my amendment. So will the Prime Minister tell us at 2:26 p.m. what is the NDP position on the carbon tax right now?
Not certain if that has to do with the administration. That question has to do with the administration of the House. But I do see the Right Honourable Prime Minister rising to his feet. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, what is clear is that the Conservatives are all ready to try and divide Canadians one against the other in any possible way they can, when the reality is the only division around climate change is that Conservative politicians still doubt whether it's real or not, and certainly don't think we should be doing anything to fight climate change. However, everybody else across the country, in all different parties, knows that it's a real issue that we're going to continue to step up and fight, unlike the Conservatives that continue to look to divide and hide from the reality of climate change.
Hear, hear.
You're the only person that divides Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
I know that the Prime Minister's plan on home heating was cynical and divisive, but the Conservatives are no better. They're more interested in playing games than actually helping people, because if they were genuine about helping people, they would support our plan to take GST off of home heating for all Canadians, to help people access clean and affordable ways to heat their home, and to make the big oil and gas companies pay for it. But we know that the corporate Conservatives won't ever stand up to big oil and gas, but will the Prime Minister support our plan to help all Canadians?
Hear, hear, hear.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we know that one of the things that helps Canadians is fighting climate change and supporting them in that fight against climate change. I know the NDP used to support phasing out coal. It is surprising to me that they are not supportive of phasing out heating oil, because that's exactly what we are doing. We're phasing out home heating oil because it is dirtier and more expensive for homes right across the country, and we're facilitating the delivery of heat pumps, including for free for low-income Canadians in provinces that choose to step up and participate. We're going to continue to fight climate change. I really wish the NDP were as unequivocal as that.
But heat pumps don't work after -20. That's a large portion of Canadians that can't use a heat pump.
Order. Order. The Honourable Member from Thornhill.
Prime Minister paused the paying of his carbon tax for 3% of families in region where he is plummeting in the polls. The Liberal minister from Newfoundland said if people in other regions wanted the same pause, that they should have elected Liberals. But people in York region elected Liberal MPs. In fact, 7 of them, and yet their constituents aren't getting the pause. Right. Yesterday, these MPs could have voted to take the tax off for the residents of York region, but they voted with the Prime Minister. So can anybody from York region stand up and explain their choice to leave their constituents in the cold?
Hear, hear. Hear, hear, Melissa.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I have said a number of times in this House, we have taken action that addresses affordability for particularly vulnerable Canadians. Heating oil costs 2 to 4 times that of natural gas. It accelerated by 75% in 2022, but we've done it in a manner that addresses the climate crisis at the same time and ensures affordability for people going forward. It will save $2,500 a year. It applies to people who live in every province and territory in this country, so long as provinces and territories step up. The shame in this chamber is that this party has no plan to address the climate crisis. I don't even know if they believe it, but they certainly don't act as though they actually think it's important.
The Honourable Member from Thornhill.
It certainly doesn't help the people in Newmarket, in Aurora, in Richmond Hill, in Woodbridge, in Markham, in Stouffville, or in North York. All of these communities got sold out by their Liberal MPs and they can't even tell people why. They had a choice to stand with their communities, and instead they stood with the Prime Minister, and now they're hiding and hoping that everybody forgets. If these MPs won't listen to their constituents, won't advocate for them in the House of Commons, and won't even stand to defend their vote, then what are they even doing here?
Hear, hear. Who knows what they're doing? They need that office ASAP. Look at MP Gold laughing at that.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This policy choice is about both affordability and about ensuring that we are addressing the climate crisis. I call on all provinces and territories to join us, certainly the Government of Ontario. Ontario has indicated an interest in moving forward with us on co-delivering this project, which would be enormously important going forward. But I would say, Mr. Speaker, that yesterday the Leader of the Opposition essentially said that he will walk away from Canada's climate targets, eroding the Canada's credibility in the international community, eroding the ability of the world to address the climate crisis. This is enormously reckless, Mr. Speaker. It is an enormous risk for the future of our children. Shame on him.
But he's a lunatic. Canada has more trees that absorb CO2 than anywhere else pretty much in the world.
The honourable member from Parry Sound Muskoka.
We have like 30% of the world's
Mr. Speaker,
forest.
the Prime Minister paused the paying of his carbon tax for 3% of Canadians in regions where he was plummeting in the polls. Then the Liberal Rural Affairs Minister said if people in other regions wanted the same pause, well, they should elect Liberals. But the people of Sudbury did elect a Liberal MP, and yet her constituents aren't getting a break. Yesterday, she could have voted to pause the carbon tax on all forms of home heating for the residents of Sudbury. But she voted no. Wow. Why is this government so committed to quadrupling their carbon tax that they forced the member for Sudbury to leave her constituents out in the cold?
Karina's still laughing. What are you smirking at?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have a serious plan, real policy that addresses affordability, but also addresses the climate crisis. The Leader of the official opposition has no plan. He mouths taglines like technology, not taxes. These coming from a guy who actually has zero background in technology, zero background in business. This coming from somebody who has been opposing the deployment of offshore wind technology through the passage of Bill C-49, something that is actually supported by the Conservative Premier of Nova Scotia and the Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador. Shame on them, having no plan for climate change, having no plan for the economy of the future.
Lunatic. John, sit down and stay side down.
Colleagues, I'm having some difficulty hearing members ask questions and to give answers. I would ask, please, that you do not exchange or engage in conversations across the aisle until you have the floor. The honourable member from Parry Sound Muskoka.
Well, just this morning, the Environment Commissioner confirmed that this government's so-called climate plan is nothing more than a punishing tax on heat, gas, and groceries. And after yesterday's vote, it is crystal clear that this NDP Liberal government has no plan to make life more affordable either. Yesterday, the member for Sault Ste. Marie could have voted to pause the carbon tax on home heating for all the residents of the Soo and all of Northern Ontario. But he voted no. Why is this government so committed to quadrupling the carbon tax that they forced the member for Sault Ste. Marie to leave his constituents out in the cold?